The police and paramedics descend on the scene of the car crash, and as everyone gives statements, it appears more and more like our heroine Hong Ju is there with prosecutor Jae Chan, and not her actual date. Said date, lawyer Yu Bum, glares at them the whole time and exchanges pointed looks with Jae Chan. Hong Ju does her own share of staring at Jae Chan, remembering how he appeared in the snow to rescue her like a goblin. You can practically see the hearts in her eyes, and Jae Chan finally has to ask her to look away. He asks how she could possibly believe him, thinking that distrust and anger are the expected reactions to his crazy talk. But she says she believes that he saved her, and shocks him by guessing that he had a dream, and that dream kept coming true. I have dreams like that too, and those dreams always come true. Like you, she says. That only seems to confuse him more. At a piano concert, a woman in the audience is covered in sweat and looking anxious, and pulls away from her husband's hand while trembling. After being checked out at the hospital, Jae Chan asks Hong Ju if she has these premonition dreams often, insisting that he's not asking because he believes her or anything. She tells him that she has them often, and there's no consistency since sometimes the incident happens minutes later, or sometimes months later. He asks if her dreams have ever been wrong, but she says no, some have yet to come true, but they haven't been wrong yet. And when he asks whether she's ever been able to change what happens in her dreams, she says that's why he's amazing. He reiterates that it's not like he believes her or anything, but he wonders what happens if she's right and he really did change the future. What happens now? Hong Ju says, if you block the flow of water, it will make a new path. You blocked things that were supposed to happen, so time will probably flow in a different direction? As she says this, we cut to the young man in the Batman cap that Jae Chan saved, Han Woo Tak, putting on a policeman's uniform. He tells his coworker that he almost died tonight. At the piano concert, as pianist So Yoon gives interviews on camera, the woman who was covered in sweat suddenly faints at her feet. It turns out to be her mother, and everyone gasps to see her blouse covered in what looks like footprints. So Yoon glares at her father, and the TV reporter who was conducting the interview calls the police right away to report domestic abuse. The dad screams that it wasn't him, but his daughter doesn't seem to believe him. While all this commotion is going on, Jae Chan's little brother runs into the concert hall with flowers in hand. Ah, is this the Friends concert he was so eager to see? As little bro arrives to see So Yoon, we ominously cut back to Jae Chan as he asks, if time flows differently, what direction does it go in, better, or worse? Hong Ju admits that she doesn't know, since she's never been able to change the future, but she guesses that at first, things won't seem that different, but the more time that flows, the bigger the difference will get. So Yoon's mother gets taken away in an ambulance, and her father gets taken away in a police car, and one of the cops happens to be Batman Cap, Woo Tak. Inside, So Yoon stands stoically, tears streaming down her face. Little bro walks up to her with his flowers, but she doesn't seem happy to see him. She grabs him by the collar and growls at him never to speak of this, and he meekly agrees. She's still gripping his lapels, so he tenderly covers her hands with his and promises sincerely not to say a word. She stays like that and lets herself cry as she thanks him quietly. Back at the hospital, Hong Ju asks why Jae Chan went to such lengths to cause a car crash and save her, when he could have written it off as just a dream. He doesn't know why, but she says she can see it plain as day. When was it that you first fell for me? Pwa ha ha ha. Jae Chan. What? Fall? Who? Me, for you. He physically backs away from her and says there must be some sort of misunderstanding, but she just hilariously scoots closer and guesses that he fell for her when she hugged him, which is why he hugged her back. He rambles about how she hugged him first, so he just hugged her back without any feelings. Hong Ju shoots back, you hugged me for too long for it to be without any feelings, all pat pat. Are you the type to just hug any woman? He blurts, no. Which just gives her more ammunition. Then I'm not just any woman. What's so special about me? What are my attractive qualities? He doesn't see how she got to this conclusion, only to have her think that he must have fallen for her before coming to rescue her. She asks if it was at the bus stop then, or when he brought rice cakes to her house, and with every question he backs away another seat until he falls right off the bench and lands butt first on the floor. She completely ignores the fall and asks if he fell for her voice over the intercom, or maybe even moved across the street to be near her. He's near tears by now, not knowing what to do with the crazy. The frame freezes on Jae Chan's face and a chyron labels him, good guy, which must mean we have a bad guy and a weird guy on the way. Sure enough, we cut to Yu Bum on his way home, and he's labeled, bad guy. And then, lol, weird guy, turns out be Hong Ju. The next morning, Hong Ju wakes up all sunshine and rainbows thinking of Jae Chan, while he's grumpier than usual when little bro wakes him up forcefully. Little bro is distracted with thoughts of his pianist friend, but puts that aside and asks if Hong is dating the neighbor Nuna now, which just puts Jae-chan in a fouler mood. Hong-ju, meanwhile, tells her mother about how Jae-chan is completely head over heels for her, turning the rice ball in her hands into a heart as she calls him handsome. Mom asks what happened to lawyer Yu Bum, and Hong-ju rips apart the rice heart at the mention of him. She asks how she could possibly date a man who would have framed her and sent them to their deaths, so Mom asks if she's swapping him out for the neighbor boy. Hong-ju declares magnanimously that since he saved her and Mom, she'll just have to repay him for the rest of his life and take him in. Jae-chan tells little bro that Hong-ju is completely insane and full of delusions that he's in love with her. He says there should be some kind of law that makes people like her wear flowers in their hair so everyone knows to avoid them. Both brothers are surprised when Hong-ju rings the doorbell that morning with rice balls to share, and Jae-chan acts like the intercom has cooties as he turns her away, saying tersely that she needn't repay him for anything. She seems to get the hint, and then both Hong-ju and Jae-chan take the same route to work later that morning, shown in the same spots along the way in split screen. They must not be that far apart, since they encounter the same people, and at one point when Hong-ju runs into a little girl who's lost her balloon in a tree, she whispers something to her about a tall man with long arms. A few moments later, Jae-chan retrieves that balloon, and the little girl thanks him by name. Hey. Hong-ju pre-orders Jae-chan's morning coffee next, and then gets on the subway some minutes ahead of him, only to pop up like a stalker the moment he sits down. He tries to stop the man between them from giving up his seat, to no avail. Hong-ju guesses that he has a lot of questions, seeing as how it feels like she followed him but was here first. She explains that she saw him going to work in a dream, and shows him the post-its of the details she saw, like him retrieving the balloon, ordering coffee, and taking the subway. She points out that this proves her dream premonitions are real, which means that he did save her, and that she owes him. She hands him an umbrella and says he'll need it, and waits for his answer about her dreams. Jae-chan says he doesn't believe her, not because he can't, but because he doesn't want to. He vows never to believe it even if he has another dream like that, no matter who dies in it. He says that if he starts to believe it, there's no end in sight to saving people, and blaming himself if he can't. He asks how you're supposed to deal with that burden, and Hong-ju has no answer for that, seeing as how she can't handle it either. He crumples up her post-its and tells her to ignore the dreams, since that's best for her own sake. He tells her to find someone else if she really wants to change the future, and returns the umbrella before walking away. Hong-ju calls after him, "You were the only one. I don't know why it's you." He turns around at that, but tells her to look for someone else, since if there's two of them, there must be more. She watches him go and says forlornly that there isn't anyone but him. On a rooftop, a father teaches his daughter how to pitch a baseball, and she tells him that she had a dream that his bus exploded and he died. She asks him not to go to work that day, and he says he'll consider it if she grants him a wish, looking at the baseball cap on her head. She sticks her tongue out at him in response. The sky is pouring rain by the time Jae-chan steps out of the subway station, and he sighs remembering Hong-ju's umbrella. He runs into his boss, who's hoping that he has an umbrella to share, but fellow prosecutor Shin Hee-min beats him to the punch. She tells Jae-chan that there's only room for two, and he tells her to go ahead, speaking to her in Banmal. As they walk away, their boss asks Hee-min why the Machna is speaking down to her, and she says it's because she's his hubei from school. Neither of them seems to approve, since he's the hubei now. The pianist's father watches elevator CCTV footage of him kicking his wife repeatedly, and the sick bastard has the gall to smile as he watches it. Unsurprisingly, his lawyer turns out to be Yu Bum, and by the way they finish each other's sentences about how to handle the case, it's clear they've done this dance many times before. The husband is sure that his wife won't press charges, because she would never put her daughter's future in jeopardy. Yu Bum meets Hong-ju for coffee and says he came because he has questions for her, and wanted to at least hear an apology. Hong-ju says that she knows he's disappointed in her actions the night of the accident, and that she might sound like a crazy person because he didn't technically do anything wrong, but she won't be able to sleep at night without a clean breakup. She does say the word, sorry, repeatedly, except she's shouting it at him as if she's saying, screw you, which makes for a hilarious apology. He's flabbergasted and just sits there not knowing what to make of her. Meanwhile, the bus driver dad is shocked when his daughter gets on his bus when she should be in school, but she says she couldn't shake her worry about the dream. That feeling only intensifies when a soldier gets on the bus just before they take off, because she recognizes his face. A moment later, the radio reports breaking news of a soldier who gunned down a police officer and is on the run. Uh-oh.